My name is Amelia, and I'm 36 years old. I stared at my laptop for what felt like hours, the screen glowing in the dim light of my apartment. The coffee beside me had gone cold, untouched. My hands trembled, not out of shock, but from confirmation. There she was, my younger sister Scarlett, beaming in ivory lace, surrounded by lilies, laughter, and love. Her new husband leaned in to kiss her cheek while friends and family erupted in applause. Everyone we ever knew was in that photo. Everyone, except me. I hadn't been invited. Not to the ceremony, not to the rehearsal, not to the happiest day of her life. And the worst part? I wasn't even surprised. That ache in my chest wasn't new. It was familiar, like a song you wish you could forget but always hum at night. Scarlett and I once swore nothing would come between us. We used to dance barefoot in our backyard in Illinois, pillowcases on our heads, pretending they were veils. Let's get married on the same day, we used to laugh. Double the cake. I was her older sister. Her biggest cheerleader. Her maid of honor in every childhood fantasy. But she didn't even acknowledge me. Not anymore. It didn't all fall apart overnight. That's the thing no one tells you, how estrangement is more like erosion than explosion. One crack. Then another. Until one day, you realize the bridge between you is gone, and you're both standing on opposite cliffs, too far to shout across. For us, it started with a boy. His name was Landon. He transferred to our high school in senior year, all charm and cologne, with that Hollywood smile and just the right amount of arrogance to make teachers fawn and girls swoon. He was the kind of guy who made a game out of attention. But behind the grin was cruelty. Landon made my life unbearable. He started a rumor, something disgusting, humiliating. Said he caught me doing things with one of our teachers in the locker room. I hadn't even been in the locker room that day. But truth doesn't matter when lies spread faster. People whispered in hallways. Teachers looked at me differently. I skipped senior prom. I ate lunch in empty classrooms. And when I found out Landon was behind it, I confronted him after school, cornered him by the vending machines. He laughed in my face. Said, "Relax." It was a compliment. As if his smear campaign was a bouquet of roses. I carried that wound in silence for 2 years. So when Scarlett brought him to brunch one spring afternoon, introducing him as her boyfriend, I felt like the floor dropped beneath me. I stared at him across the table, that same smug glint in his eye. And I thought, surely, she doesn't know. She can't. I waited until he left the table for a phone call. Just me and her. 2 sisters, like it used to be. I leaned in and said softly, "Scarlett, you need to be careful. Landon isn't who you think he is." She paused, fork midair, eyes narrowing. "You've always hated the guys I liked," she said, her voice sharp. "Just admit it. You're jealous." That word. Jealous. She didn't say it with curiosity. She said it like an accusation. Something in me broke that day. I didn't fight back. I didn't try to show her screenshots, explain the whispers, or the therapy sessions. Because when someone you love chooses not to believe you, no amount of proof will change their mind. From then on, I faded from her life like a song that slowly gets turned down. At family dinners, Landon was always there, taking the seat of honor. When I brought up the past, half joking, half testifying, my father sighed and said, "Are you seriously still holding on to that?" My mother smiled her polite smile, the one that meant, "Don't make a scene." But the real betrayal came weeks later, when I overheard a conversation not meant for me. My parents whispering in the kitchen. "If we include her, she'll ruin the wedding," my mother said. "It's her or the day," my father replied. That's when I knew. I hadn't just lost my sister. I'd lost them all. A few days after that kitchen conversation, the one that shattered the last illusion I had about where I stood, I watched my parents open Scarlett's wedding invitation like it was nothing. They laughed about the calligraphy, the catering, the plus ones. I waited. Pretended to sip tea. Pretended not to notice that there was no envelope addressed to me. Finally, I asked, was there one for me? My mother didn't answer right away. She looked down at her lap. My father cleared his throat and mumbled something about wanting peace. Hours later, I received a single text from Scarlett. Just one line. I just want peace at my wedding. Please understand. No explanation. No phone call. No apology. Just that. And in that moment, something inside me didn't break, it calcified. I didn't reply. Because what do you say to a sister who chooses silence over your existence? But silence isn't the same as surrender. And I wasn't going to let her pretend I never existed. So I opened the old shoe box. The one I hadn't touched in years. It had lived at the back of my closet like a coffin for memories I didn't have the strength to bury. Inside it were scraps of childhood, tokens of a bond now burned. There was the friendship bracelet, pink and purple thread, the charm cracked in half. We made it during a blackout one summer, when we were 10 and 12. She tied mine too tight, and I had to cut it off 6 months later. We'd promised to wear them at each other's weddings. She forgot. I didn't. There was also a photo, creased and slightly stained, of the three of us, me, Scarlett, and Landon. Only his arm was stretched across the frame, blocking most of my face. At the time, it stung. Now, it felt poetic. Then I found the cassette. Our voices, high-pitched and hopeful, echoing through time. No dumb boy will ever come between us. We'll walk each other down the aisle. Forever sisters, forever best friends. I didn't cry. I just sat there listening, trying to remember what it felt like to be believed. That's when the idea came to me. Not vengeance. Not spite. Truth. Delivered like a gift. Wrapped in memory. I bought a plain white box. No branding. No glitter. Just silence in a square. Inside, I placed the bracelet, still cracked but real. The photo, trimmed so Landon's arm dominated the frame. The cassette, with a label, play before reading. And then the letter. 8 pages, handwritten. No edits. No filter. Titled simply. Before you say I do. I poured everything into it. Not anger. Just truth. How Landon destroyed my reputation. How she called me jealous. How I stayed silent, even when I had proof, like the time my college roommate confessed Landon tried to sleep with her the same week Scarlett got engaged. I ended it with a line I knew she'd remember. I loved you enough to stay silent. Maybe too long. This is me finally speaking. Then I sealed the box. No return address. Just one instruction. To the bride. I didn't expect to watch. I told myself I wouldn't scroll, wouldn't search her name, wouldn't act like a ghost desperate to haunt something I wasn't invited to. But when the wedding day arrived, and my apartment felt too quiet, too hollow, I gave in. I opened Instagram. And there it was, post after post, clip after clip, a perfectly curated fairy tale. Scarlett smiling beneath soft twinkle lights, her dress flowing like wind over water. Our father spinning her during their dance. Landon, smug as ever, raising a glass, that same smirk stitched to his face like it had never left high school. It didn't make me cry. I didn't sob or scream. I just watched, still, composed. My breath calm, my heart strangely steady. But my fingers trembled against the glass of my phone. Because I knew something they didn't. The box was on its way. It arrived mid-reception, after the first dance, after the champagne had been poured and the speeches had begun to blur together. The courier walked in like any other hired hand, box in hand, shirt pressed, expression unreadable. He passed the white package to the maid of honor, who delivered it with a smile, assuming it was from a long-lost aunt or a distant college friend. Scarlett peeled the wrapping with curiosity, unaware that the air was about to shift. First, the bracelet. Her fingers paused as she lifted it, that old cracked charm glinting under the chandelier. She didn't say anything. Didn't have to. Her silence screamed. Landon leaned closer, squinting. What is that? She didn't answer. She set it down gently and reached for the next item. The cassette. Her lips parted. My handwriting still neat, still familiar, play before reading. But she didn't press play. Her fingers trembled as she placed it beside the bracelet. Then came the folded sheet of paper, an old printed rumor, the one Landon started years ago. A guest whispered. Someone frowned. The energy in the room dipped just slightly, like a light bulb flickering before it bursts. Then she pulled out the letter. 8 pages. Handwritten. Titled. Before You Say I Do. Scarlett began to read aloud. Her voice was quiet, but the words were loud. I used to think being your sister was the best part of me. People turned. Conversations died. The DJ muted the music. A bridesmaid held her breath. Scarlett kept reading, slow, deliberate, until she reached the line that sliced the room open. 2 years ago, my college roommate told me Landon tried to sleep with her. One of those messages was from the week you got engaged. A glass shattered. Someone gasped. Landon jumped to his feet. That's a lie, he barked. She's bitter. She's jealous. She's trying to ruin everything. But it was too late. The silence that followed said everything. It was the kind of silence that clings. The kind that burrows into your spine. Scarlett didn't defend him. She didn't say a word. She just stood there, holding my letter like it weighed more than her bouquet. It happened fast. Faster than anyone expected. One moment, Scarlett was standing frozen, letter in hand. The next, phones were out, faces tilted, capturing history in real time. A bridesmaid recorded the whole thing without even thinking, her camera held steady as my sister read words soaked in memory, pain, and honesty. By the time she reached the last page, the room had transformed. Gone was the joy-soaked blur of clinking glasses and polite laughter. In its place was something sharper. Heavier. Scarlett's voice cracked on the final line. I loved you enough to stay silent. Maybe too long. This is me finally speaking. She lowered the letter. No one clapped. No one spoke. And then, like a spark in dry grass, the clip went live. The bridesmaid posted it to TikTok, just a simple caption. Bride reads letter from estranged sister. What happens next? Wow. Within minutes it had hundreds of views. Then thousands. By the time the reception ended, it was already on Twitter. Then YouTube. Then headlines. Viral wedding moment, bride exposes groom mid-ceremony. Sister's letter uncovers groom's secret past, internet reacts. Hashtag SisterTruth trending after wedding bombshell. The comment sections flooded in. Good for her sister. This feels like a Netflix movie. Justice. Served. Cold. She's a legend. Landon looks like a ghost. Protect this sister at all costs. And while all this happened, I stayed still. I didn't gloat. I didn't share it. I didn't hit refresh obsessively, even though every buzz of my phone made my stomach twist. This wasn't about going viral. It was about being heard. And finally, I was. For years, I'd lived as the quiet one. The one who chose peace over confrontation. The one who swallowed truths because I believed love should come before anger. But peace without truth is just performance. And I was done performing. Scarlett didn't respond that night. No calls. No texts. Not even a message saying, why? I imagined her sitting in a bridal suite, surrounded by discarded flowers and uneaten cake, reading the letter over again, maybe rewinding the cassette, our voices from the past, promising forever. Maybe she heard it this time. Maybe for the first time, she saw me. And Landon? Well, the internet had plenty to say about him. Someone even dug up old school photos, old Reddit threads, and, eventually, screenshots from my college roommate. The receipts surfaced, one by one. Screenshots don't lie. By morning, the story had a life of its own. Scarlett disappeared from social media within 24 hours. The wedding hashtag went dark. Vendors deleted posts. Guests untagged themselves. Even the planner removed the dream ceremony reel. It wasn't just a viral moment. It was a shift. A public reckoning. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel erased. I felt real. Not as someone's sister. Not as someone's scapegoat. But as someone who chose truth, loud, clear, and unapologetic. 3 days passed. It rained again. Not the dramatic, thunderous kind, the slow, persistent drizzle that seeps into your bones and makes the world feel heavy. I stood in my kitchen, steeping tea, letting the steam warm my fingers while my thoughts floated somewhere between past and future. Then, a knock. It wasn't frantic. Not hesitant. Just, hollow. When I opened the door, Scarlett was standing there. Still in her honeymoon dress. Makeup streaked like melted watercolor. Barefoot on the porch. No ring on her finger. In her hand, the bracelet. The same one we made during that summer blackout. The one with the cracked silver charm. The one we promised to wear to each other's weddings. She clutched it like it might vanish if she let go. Her eyes were swollen, not from sleep, but from something deeper. Guilt. Real, bone-deep, aching guilt. We stood in silence. Her mouth opened. Closed. Then finally. I knew what he did. I blinked. My breath caught. But I didn't move. I knew about Landon, she continued. I found out before the wedding. I didn't want to be wrong. About him. About us. About you. Her voice cracked halfway through. Her fingers tightened around the bracelet. Like it was the last piece of childhood she still believed in. I thought if I ignored it, it would stop mattering. But you didn't let me forget. You didn't let me lie to myself. She wasn't here for forgiveness. I could feel that in my bones. She wasn't here to explain or ask for comfort. She was here because she'd finally seen the mirror I'd sent her, not just the letter, not just the cassette or the past, but herself. And I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't offer her some poetic, ready-for-closure quote. I just said the one truth I'd waited years to speak out loud. I wasn't trying to destroy your wedding. I was trying to give you your mirror back. Silence again. But this time, it wasn't sharp. It was heavy. It was honest. She looked down at the bracelet, fingers trembling. And slowly, she let it go. It slipped from her hand and hit the porch wood with a dull clink before settling still, like a memory finding its final place. She turned to leave. Paused at the first step. Didn't look back. Didn't beg. Didn't offer apologies wrapped in ribbon. Just one sentence. I don't think I know who I am without you. Then she was gone. No grand exit. No redemption arc. Just rain tapping on the porch roof, soft and steady, like a lullaby sung by the truth itself. I stood there long after the door closed, listening. Letting the weight of years unravel, thread by thread. Because healing doesn't always arrive with forgiveness. Sometimes, it shows up as the absence of denial. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. I didn't tell anyone what happened that day. There was no Instagram story, no cryptic post, no need to validate my side of the story online. I simply made another cup of tea, sat by the window, and watched the rain blur the skyline. Something had shifted. Not in Scarlett. Not even in Landon. But in me. For years, I'd lived in the shadows of other people's comfort zones, afraid to speak up, afraid to be the one who ruins the moment. I'd buried my truth under politeness, hoping silence would eventually earn me peace. But the thing is, silence isn't peace. Silence is a slow erasure. And I had let myself fade too long. But not anymore. That box I sent wasn't a weapon. It was a release. A quiet scream. A last act of love from someone who was tired of being invisible. And for all the destruction it left behind, it built something too. It built me. Scarlett's words stayed with me. I don't think I know who I am without you. I used to feel the same way. But now, I know who I am. I am not just the forgotten sister. I am not the rumor, the whisper, the drama. I am not a bitter echo of someone else's wedding. I am a woman who stood in her truth, even when it cost her everything. I am someone who chose herself when no one else would. And that is a kind of love that doesn't need applause. In the days that followed, I deleted the photo of her wedding from my phone. Not out of spite, but because it no longer held power over me. I didn't need proof of my absence to know I existed. I had existed. In every shared memory. In every laugh from our childhood. In every promise we whispered over pillow forts and cassette tapes. In the parts of her life she had to edit out in order to feel whole. And now? Now I exist for me. I started small, hiking again, painting, reaching out to old friends I'd lost in the fog of my family's rejection. I let the sun touch my skin without wondering if anyone saw me glow. I stopped begging to be heard and began listening to myself. And one morning, as I passed the mirror on the way out the door, I paused. For the first time in years, I saw someone I recognized. Not the version of me Scarlett remembered. Not the one our parents talked about in hushed tones. Just me. Stronger. Softer. Whole. Some stories don't end with perfect closure. Some sisters never find their way back. Some weddings stay broken. But healing isn't about rewinding. It's about choosing to move forward, with truth in your hands and peace in your pocket. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. The most powerful truths are the ones we're afraid to speak. For years, Amelia believed that staying silent was a form of love, that protecting others from discomfort meant preserving peace. But she learned, painfully and beautifully, that silence can sometimes betray the very people it was meant to protect. When family turns away, when love becomes conditional, and when your voice is treated like a threat, choosing yourself is not selfish. It is necessary. This story reminds us that setting boundaries isn't an act of war. It's an act of self-preservation. Speaking your truth isn't about revenge, it's about freedom. Even when it hurts. Even when it makes the walls shake. Because love built on silence is never real love. And truth, no matter how long it's buried, has a way of rising. Have you ever swallowed your pain to keep someone else comfortable? Stayed quiet to avoid drama? We all do it. But there comes a time when silence costs more than conflict. Like Amelia, many of us have been taught to let it go, to be the peacekeeper, even when it means abandoning our own voice. But healing begins when we stop apologizing for our truth. It begins when we stop waiting for an invitation to be valued. You don't need permission to be honest. You don't need approval to exist fully. Write the letter. Speak the truth. Send the box, if you must. Not to hurt, but to heal.